The United States has acknowledged that Russia, not Ukraine, is continuing to escalate the war and delay peace. Russia's use of the Oreshnik missile against Lviv has triggered a response in Washington. For now, the response remains limited to political statements. Speaking at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, US Deputy Permanent Representative Tammy Bruce described Russia's use of the Oreshnik ballistic missile as an unjustified escalation. She stated clearly that Russia is dragging out the war, not moving toward peace, and called on all parties to focus on achieving a diplomatic resolution.
At a moment of tremendous potential, due only to President Trump's unparalleled commitment to peace around the world, both sides should be seeking ways to de-escalate. Yet Russia's action risks expanding and intensifying the war. From the start, President Trump has decried the carnage of this conflict. Horribly, we have to continue to deplore the staggering number of casualties, service members and civilians, men, women, and children. We condemn Russia's continuing and intensifying attacks on Ukraine's energy facilities and other civilian infrastructure. These attacks make a mockery of the cause of peace, a cause of paramount importance to the world and to President Trump.
Meanwhile, Ukraine is urging its partners to move beyond words and respond with concrete actions to Russia's Oreshnik strike. Kyiv is calling for tougher sanctions on Moscow and for targeting the remaining tools that continue to finance Russia's war against Ukraine.
We call upon our allies to introduce additional sanctions and increase economic pressure on Russia, including tougher measures targeting the shadow fleet, further restrict energy revenues as well as Moscow's ability to acquire critical components for weapons production.
The proposal was voiced by Andriy Melnik, Ukraine's permanent representative to the United Nations, who stressed that symbolic reactions are no longer enough. To recap, on January 9th, Russia launched a ballistic missile attack on Ukraine's Lviv region, firing from the Kapustin Yar testing range. According to Ukraine's air forces, the missile traveled at a speed of up to 13,000 kilometers per hour. Air Command officials say the exact type of the missiles will be confirmed after a full technical analysis of its debris. The strike damaged civilian infrastructure. The blast wave forced authorities to temporarily suspend gas supplies in parts of the region. At the same time, Russia continues to carry out large-scale attacks across Ukraine during extreme winter cold. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians remain without heating, electricity and water. Since October 2025, this marks the 8th massive strike on thermal power plants. Energy facilities and residential buildings have come under fire, leaving entire cities without power. Russian strikes have hit Kyiv, Odesa, Kharkiv, Kryvyi Rih, as well as Zaporizhia, Zhytomyr and Dnipropetrovsk regions. As Russia continues what Kyiv describes as ongoing energy terror, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy has appealed directly to Ukraine's allies. Zelenskyy says he expects the United States and Europe to accelerate the delivery of military and energy assistance following the latest Russian attacks, adding that such an agreement is already in place. President Zelenskyy said that overnight on January 13th, Russia launched more than 300 attack drones, along with 18 ballistic and 7 cruise missiles. Ukraine's energy infrastructure was the primary target. Zelenskyy stressed that every such Russian strike should serve as a reminder that support for Ukraine cannot slow down or stop.
As always, wherever Russia tries to destroy, Ukrainians support one another, and internal resilience is what is most needed right now. Every such strike against life is a reminder that support for Ukraine cannot be stopped. Missiles for air defense systems are needed every day, and especially during winter. The world can respond to this Russian terror with new assistance packages for Ukraine. We expect the acceleration of deliveries already agreed with America and Europe. Russia must come to learn that cold will not help it win the war. Thank you to everyone who is helping.
Russia planned to reach Odesa in 2025 in an attempt to cut Ukraine off from the Black Sea. Ukrainian forces, however, managed to derail those plans. Ukraine's commander-in-chief Alexander Syrsky confirmed that Russian objectives in the south were disrupted by Ukrainian military operations. According to Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Ukrainian forces prevented any critical breakthrough by Russian troops, disrupted Moscow plans, and repeatedly forced the enemy to postpone planned operations. He added that Russian forces suffered heavy losses over the past year, shrinking by more than 418,000 personnel killed or wounded.
The past year was a tremendous test for us. The Russian aggressor aimed to end the war in Ukraine, but only on its own terms, through overwhelming force. They tried to seize the remaining territories of Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhzhia, the right bank of Kherson, and even planned to reach Odesa to completely cut us off from the sea. We stopped them. Ukrainian forces prevented critical breakthroughs, disrupted their plans, and repeatedly forced the enemy to postpone their operations. We stood strong because our soldiers fought at the limit with total dedication, inflicting maximum losses on the occupiers and reducing the enemy army by more than 418,000 killed and wounded over the course of the year.
At the same time, analysts at the Institute for the Study of War say Russia can still be forced into concessions. They argue this requires stronger Western economic pressure on Moscow combined with continued support for Ukraine to increase pressure on the battlefield. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War say the Russian population is increasingly feeling the consequences of Moscow's decision to prioritize the defense industrial sector. The report notes that the Russian government is scrambling to fund its defense industry under strict Western sanctions and has introduced measures to boost available capital. This includes the Industrial Development Fund of budget subsidies and policies forcing banks to provide low-interest loans to defense companies. In addition, the Russian Central Bank cut its key interest rate 4 times in 2025, likely aimed at increasing capital for defense producers and lowering borrowing costs. Analysts warn that Putin's prioritization of the defense sector comes at a high cost to ordinary Russians, as banks pass their financial pressure onto consumers.
Russian civilians are struggling to afford homes, with most Russian commercial housing rates estimated at 20% or higher in January 2026. Putin also signed a law in November 2025 increasing the value-added tax, VAT, a federal tax imposed on most Russian goods and services domestically, from 20 to 22%, placing more of the burden of Russia's costly war in Ukraine on the Russian people. ISW continues to assess that increased Western economic pressure on Russia, along with helping Ukraine maintain and even increase pressure on the battlefield, remains critical to changing Putin's calculus and forcing Putin to face more serious trade-offs between continuing to pursue his maximalist war aims and sacrificing the quality of life of the Russian people.
Meanwhile, a power struggle is unfolding in the heart of Russia. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov is reportedly preparing his son to take over as his health reportedly declines. Meanwhile, the Kremlin moves to tighten control over the unstable republic. The Times reports these developments on January 12th. Reports suggest Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov is battling acute pancreatitis and kidney issues. He was last seen in public frail and walking with a cane. According to Ukrainian media, Ukrinform, Kadyrov is currently in his private hospital in Chechnya, surrounded by family members, including relatives from abroad. His declining health has accelerated talks over his succession, with the Times noting that this is a critical issue for Kadyrov, who wants to secure long-term safety for his family. Around 100 of Kadyrov's relatives hold positions in the Chechen administration, far more than the 26 family members reportedly appointed by President Putin. Journalists say Kadyrov is grooming his 18-year-old son Adam, who resembles him in appearance and behavior, to eventually take over. Adam has already been given several official titles, including Secretary of the Security Council. Meanwhile, his older 20-year-old son Ahmad holds the most awards among Chechen officials and heads the Ministry of Sports and the Ministry of Regional Youth Affairs. Earlier this month, he was also appointed Deputy Prime Minister of Chechnya. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments below.